Back in the day, I got recruited to be a hitman and a mercenary paid for by the Clintons during the Powder Wars.
Blow chitty, blow chitty, blow chitty, blow cheesemo. I'm back, buddy. Okay, I know what you're thinking. And why are we back in the living room when we just had Bloach doing the fake Merc thing? It's a fair question. It's a fair question. But this was actually the workout before he did this live stream. And I think it's interesting to see how the wheels turn in Bloach's head. Or, well, more like a wheel, like a hamster wheel turning in his head. But let's have a little look at how the wheel turns.
Because again, I'm trying not to load my shoulders up.
Because you fucked him up with that incline bench PR and those horrendous tricep extensions.
I'm trying to let them heal on everything. Just the other reason I'm doing all high reps on the upper body.
Heal from what? What are they healing from? It's so strange because for years, your shoulders haven't been like healing. It's just been a structural issue and they don't need to heal because if they were healing, that would mean you fucked them up, right? Like that would mean your workouts are all fucking up your shoulders.
Just the other reason I'm doing all high reps on the upper body.
High reps will not fix shoulder mobility. I don't know how you got that in your head.
Like, I want there to be no pain, no fatigue, nothing ever in my shoulders.
Oh, that's interesting. Zero pain and zero fatigue in the shoulders. So that means he's currently experiencing shoulder pain, so his shoulders are in pain from his shitty workouts. And the fatigue is interesting. I wonder where he's going with this fatigue. It's like his shoulders have to be in perfect shape all of a sudden for something. And since they have to be in perfect shape, maybe he has to stop doing something else.
Like, I can't afford that. So that's why I'm like, I'm not going to mess with the overhead.
For now. You're not going to mess with the overhead press for now. You'll most certainly swap it back in and start talking about how it's going to fix your shoulders. But for the time being, you have realized, at least to some degree, that overhead pressing in and of itself does not fix shoulder mobility.
Press, all that stuff I put myself through.
All that stuff he put himself through was some terrible lat pullovers, seated overhead pressing, and also hanging from a bar. He would hang from a bar sometimes. And that's it. That's all he did. He makes it sound like he went to the ends of the earth and put himself through hell to try and fix his shoulders. But now a new thing has popped into his head. A new excuse you would never expect Blaha to come up with for why he can't do certain lifts, why he's not going to try and fix his shoulders. I wonder what this, I wonder where he could possibly be going with this.
Was to get the overhead press back. I don't need that. Like, for my other hobbies, I can't afford that to...
Oh, his other hobbies. Not his job as a YouTuber and a fitness influencer. His other hobbies. He can't afford his job to get in the way of his hobby. Obviously, he's beginning to transition to being a right-wing grifter on Facebook, but this is still what he's known for. This is what he does. But some other hobby is just as important, even more so than this all of a sudden.
Like my shooting and other stuff, like, I can't be in a situation to where...
Oh, right, you're shooting. That makes sense, Blaha. Even though you apparently do it all the time, but just recently it's gotten so bad that you're worried you're not going to be able to shoot a gun because your shoulders are that fucked? Your shoulders are that fucked, dude? Blaha, you're worried that you're not going to be able to draw down on a troll because your shoulders are fucked up from your own training? That's crazy, dude. But not only is that crazy, I think he's starting to try and reverse engineer some form of incorporating firearms back into what he's doing. He's trying to figure out the math of the fake merc angle in guns, and if he can do that, then he doesn't have to lift weights anymore.
My draw and rise up is ever slowed down by that.
Yeah. His shoulders are so fucked up that he now has to consider how much they're impairing his draw and rise up, or whatever he called it. I don't fucking know. But I think this is his way to start working his way out of lifting weights. I don't think it's going to happen today or tomorrow, but he's trying to find a new angle along with his Facebook grift. And he's thinking like politics and guns, and this leads us into the live stream, where he starts flirting with it again. He's starting to flirt with it again. What you doing, Blaha? What you up to, buddy?
Clint, I've thought about doing it. I really have.
Oh, geez. This Clint fella is a real shit stirrer. Tell you what, he gets Blaha going here.
Of redoing the fake merc thing at this point and removing my apology.
You never apologize, Blaha, so there's no apology to remove if you never apologize. Telling people it was a joke and you're trolling is not an apology. You thought that people would believe you, and then you started striking channels and deleting comments, and then you tried to like cover it up with the copper top thing. You just went all over the top with it. If you were trolling, you just would have let it slide, right? It would have been working just as you intended. But you weren't trolling. You actually thought that people would believe you, but no one believed you. Apologizing to someone because in your mind they were too retarded is not an apology, and no one believed you. So that's why this has never gone away. You've never owned up to it, actually, that's what you wanted people to believe. You wanted to be that. You were a fake merc.
I don't know if I can do it. I can't do it with a straight face.
This is fun. So this is Blaha now lying about his ability to lie. Let's see how long this holds up.
I mean, let's see if we can do it.
About 15 seconds. It took him about 15 seconds.
Back in the day, I got recruited to be a hitman and a mercenary paid for by the Clintons during the powder wars.
It's so weird. It's like he's trying to not sound like it's something he would say, but then he pretty much says it totally fine. Now he's got to chuckle it off. How crazy was that? And he starts blushing.
I mean, I can't do it, dude. I can't even do it.
But you did do it, so you can do it. So you're kind of confused yourself here on how to approach this.
Well, because I was able to, because it's...
His lie is completely collapsing in front of us, and he's trying to mask it with like a smile and a chuckle, but he has no clue how to explain it. He still has no clue how to own up for it.
It was a different era, Jane. It was a different era.
Oh, that one was tough. That was pretty brutal there, Blaha. It was a different era. Let's just soak that in one more time.
It was a different era.
Yes, it was, buddy. Yes, it was. It's gone forever. We'll never quite have those memes. But who knows what's around the corner for Blaha? Who knows what grift awaits us? And that's all the time I have. I'll see you soon, Bloachy Bloach.
Manerovar, how cooked do we honestly think the Elder Scrolls is? It's in Hammerfell, which is a purely DEI location at this point. Its name is Sentinel. We're 99% sure it's Sentinel. If it turns out to not be Sentinel, I would be honestly surprised. And it's the most generic name ever possible, honestly, which is crazy. Bethesda has never really been good at a unique and creative decision making in things. Their strength historically has always been just taking something that everyone understands, something relatively generic, and just making it into somehow a good experience overall. So, Sentinel does fit the genericity part here, but I mean, that's a little bit generic even for Bethesda at this point, if I have to be honest. And we could literally be playing as a Red Guard historic figure that comes in time of crises. The Hammerfell stories are gonna be gutted, and it's probably gonna be about racism. Okay, listen, it's gonna be great, don't worry about it. If you know anything about the Hammerfall setting and the problems that they have religiously, politically, and all of those types, modern Bethesda literally will never be able to handle it. I mean, we're talking about the people who made, whose greatest creative decision in Starfield was introducing a character that's a clone of a male scientist that's female. Yes, that was literally the peak part of writing Starfield. It's sad. Oh boy, this is not looking good.
First thing to note is that in Asha Sharma's tweet, she put out a number of asterisks. She said that she saw a gameplay demo of The Elder Scrolls 6, asterisk, and then did that for a very specific number of times, which could have been random, could have been intentional, but it was interesting that then further social media posts made by other people also had the same number of asterisks. Could have just copy and pasted her post, or it could be coordinated. Make up your mind as you will, but the point is people saw that there's a certain number of asterisks listed, and then they use that to...
So, this is intentional. We know this has to be intentional, because Bethesda currently is under the changed leadership of Asha Sharma of Xbox, doing a lot of promotions. And, you know, this involves stuff like this. If this is random, I mean... oh boy, if this was actually not premeditated by them, that is crazy.
assume the number of like characters in the subtitle of the game. And the reason why it's important to know the subtitle of The Elder Scrolls 6 is because typically when Bethesda does a subtitle, it gives you a pretty good indication of what like the either subject matter of the game is going to be, or in the case of like Skyrim, where it's going to be set. So then people took...
It's almost like that's what the names of things are supposed to do. Crazy, honestly.
Took the fact that there were 8 characters allegedly in the subtitle of the game, and then they took that and started to look back through old leaks or other pieces of information that could indicate what the subtitle is based on 8 total.
I mean, this is like a 6 out of 10 stick at best, in my honest opinion.
Total characters and no spaces because it looks like it's just one word. Before long, a user by the name of Starfield November posted to the Elder Scrolls 6 subreddit, and it was just simply a post of something shown in the Starfield Direct from 2023. And in that post, it's just a string of numbers, 16 numbers to be exact, and those 16 numbers are supposed to be like the employee ID number, effectively. Like it's expected that it's just randomly generated, and that's what a lot of people thought. But I remember back in 2023, in the lead up to Starfield, the fandom was crazy hyped and trying to figure out every little Easter egg they could in the game. And they found that if you took each of those numbers, if you broke up the 16 digits into 2-digit chunks, and then you corresponded those numbers with a letter in the alphabet out of all the letters, and then you like tally it up and spell it out, it ends up spelling out Sentinel. And at the time...
Whoa, that is so crazy. And if you flip it backwards, it says Lenitness. Whoa! Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. This could have honestly been random, because again, it's just so unbelievably genetic. The more interesting thing is, well, that's gonna be for tomorrow, but there is a video that claims that the Sentinel, the next Elder Scrolls 6 game was teased in Elder Scrolls Online years ago, which is kind of a wild thing to say, but that's for tomorrow, okay? We're just sliding in.
And at the time, back in 2023, it was thought that this was a hint as to like the bad guys in Starfield, or the faction, the name of the bad guy faction, or
maybe it's just a reference to the X-Men.
Or something like that. It wasn't thought that it was a hint at anything else. But you'll notice Sentinel is 8 letters long. And people are looking at it going, oh, that could work. What if that was a hint for the subtitle of The Elder Scrolls 6? I'm gonna be honest, this one...
I still like the idea that Elder Scrolls 6 name is Starfall, and it's in Iliac Bay.
I don't blame people for like not realizing it was Elder Scrolls related. It's in a Starfield Direct. I think it's fair to assume that that would be for Starfield, you know? So I don't feel bad for people missing that, because it does, I mean, it lines up. And the term Sentinel is not one to be disregarded quickly. I mean, you could say maybe it was referring to something in Starfield, because there were plenty of things labeled Sentinel in Starfield. But
I think that's actually what in reality happened, by the way. I do not believe that these people had enough foresight for anything like this.
Where it stops seeming like a coincidence is with a former developer. You see, there was a writer on the Elder Scrolls series for a long time named Michael Kirkbride, and he actually is still active on Reddit. I'm surprised they haven't like given him the swat on the wrist, because he like talks about Elder Scrolls pretty frequently. And he specifically said in response to somebody saying Sentinel as an answer to the question, what is the subtitle of Elder Scrolls 6 going to be? He simply replied, yep. Okay, well, to me, it seems like that might confirm it. You know, one of the writers, one of the people that knows what the subtitle is, at least what it was a few years ago, he says, yeah, that's the subtitle. And that would align with the Starfield leak, Easter egg, whatever you want to call it. Seems like Sentinel is the subtitle. And then you add on to it a bunch.
By the way, the reason why this is believable is very simple, because that guy was a writer for a very long time in Bethesda, so needless to say, they didn't actually figure out what the name of the game is gonna be like in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, or whatever you want to claim Elder Scrolls 6 has been in development. These options, and the most likely option, has been probably floating around since after Skyrim. People probably talked, speculated, and whatnot, because, I mean, you're a writer and whatnot. What are you gonna do if not right? What are you gonna do if you're not gonna, speculate ideas that could be done? So, the fact that this guy who no longer works in Bethesda says yep on this is actually pretty good evidence, because he would most likely be in the know. Now, granted, maybe he's not 100% in the know any longer, obviously, but even if the project was not started, he would still probably, kind of be able to figure it out after he left and whatnot.
A bunch of other little bitty things, like, for example, in one of the Starfield trailers, there's like a scratch on the windowsill. And if you look close, it looks like a map that roughly corresponds with the area we'll be talking about in a second.
Oh, yeah, that was crazy. I saw that. That's not random.
In the continent. So, like, it lines up and it makes sense, but there's a lot of reasons to think so. It's just that these two reasons are probably the biggest ones. But okay, let's say that the title is actually The Elder Scrolls 6 Sentinel. What does that actually tell us? What can we do with that information? Or is it just like an exercise in futility? Well, there actually are a few things we can take from that. I also just realized that I am literally touching grass. as we go through this. Kind of beautifully poetic when you think about it, really. I mean,
is it?
I should do this more often. I feel grounded. I feel less irrational. This is crazy. I have the urge to close Twitter off my phone. What is happening? Well, to just read you a little bit from the wiki, Sentinel is one of the 9 major kingdoms of the province of Hammerfell, which has long been rumored to be the location and like hub for the Elder Scrolls 6. There's many reasons for this. There's leaks, there's rumors and speculation, but also, like, just anecdotally, if we look at like individual instances, the Elder Scrolls Online has gone to countless areas of like the Elder Scrolls available map, effectively. And the one area that they have not really touched and have steered clear of is like the overwhelming majority of Hammerfell. Like, they just don't mess with it. It's a pretty big area on the map. It's pretty like diverse in terms of biomes, with like a lot of rolling hills and ocean and like coastal areas and deserts and stuff. It seems like a place you would expect them to go, and they have just not touched it. And I'm guessing that's because they've known for a decade that that's where the next mainline game is going to be set, so it makes sense. But there's that. It's the capital of both the Alakir Desert region and the Merquasa region of the Alakir. I'm going to apologize for the mispronunciations. I'm American. What?
Please do apologize for the mispronunciations of fictional fucking places. Please do.
What did you expect? I mean, this is what you get. Dude, speak.
Again, Luke is like 5 minutes away from why I hate America video, just like Lon. It's great. It's great.
Speaking of, I had somebody in the elevator, thick Scottish accent, loved it. It was awesome. And she like
that's racist.
Was asking me where I'm from and everything as we're like riding down to get breakfast in the hotel. And she said that she loved my accent. What? I have never in my life had somebody say they like my accent. It was weird. It was weird. Do Scottish people like American accents?
Last time someone tried to guess which accent I have, they said, "Are you Scottish or Indian?" Do I look Scottish? Like, what the hell? What, bruh? What?
What is happening? I had never in my life experienced that. I think of Americans liking British accents or liking Scottish accents or this or that. I've never in my life heard of a Scot liking an American accent. It was weird. I didn't know what to do with it. I just kind of went, I had nothing to say.
Basic human behaviors. Odd, yes.
Anyway, continuing on. It is also considered to be the guardian of the Iliac Bay and has been the safe haven of the Western world through the eras. Sentinel has been the modern capital of Hammerfell ever since the Interregnum and the Tiber War. It is also the capital of the Forebears, one of Hammerfell's political factions. Sentinel itself is located in the northern peninsula of the kingdom overlooking the Iliac Bay. The city is rather large and well fortified from the east, and the Sentinel Bazaar is located on the lower end of Sentinel, underneath the bridge dividing the north and south end. The Sentinese Bazaar is one of the largest markets on this side of the Iliac. Going across the largest market on this side of the Iliac.
Oh no, this has got to be a modern thing. There's no way someone previously said The Sentinels Bazaar? There's no way.
the Sentinel Canal, and eventually the Sentinel outskirts. East of the bazaar leads into the eastern harbor of the Sentinel called the Wayfarer's Wharf. There are ruins of...
Bro, why are you repeating Sentinel after everything? We understand. The description of the Sentinel City is gonna be the description of the Sentinel City. You don't have to mention that every part of the Sentinel City is a part of Sentinel City. Who fired someone?
Ancient Sentinel underneath the modern city, which is where the Sentinel Outlaws Refuge is located. North Sentinel expands from the western harbor to the Forge. The Sentinel Square is located on the northern end of the bridge and houses the Sisters of the Sand.
There has to be a 4chan green post summarizing this pain I'm feeling.
Inn. South Sentinel is the home of nobility as well as Semaruik, the Palace of Sentinel built by Grandi Yagub during the Ragada invasion. Again, I'm just going to apologize for the mispronunciations. I'm doing my best. And if you're interested, I recommend that you read through these like lore pages because it's been mentioned in like previous Elder Scrolls games and literature and books and stuff. There's plenty to learn about it, and you can even start to kind of piece together what it's going to look like as you play through it. But there are some key takeaways. Number one is that Sentinel...
It's going to have a lot of George Floyd references. That's what we're going to have, okay? It's going to be not a lot of percents of fatherhood in the family, okay? It's going to be great, boys.
Is massive. It is a huge city, and it's also very...
There's going to be a lot of beggars. That's right, boys. A lot of beggars.
Vibrant. It's like... It's a big undertaking.
Hard times, okay? And there's going to be missions to smuggle fentanyl, I assume.
And I'm going to be honest, given the limitations of the creation engine as we understand it, which I think for most people is the biggest like question mark with this game, I'm worried. I'm going to be honest, because
he's worried. He's tired.
Historically, the way Bethesda does cities is with little bitty like micro districts, which are effectively each of the little sandboxes that you can go and explore. And so even with like Neon, which is supposed to be this epic, huge sort of cyberpunk city, in the concept art, it's...
Remember when Starfield came out, said that, whoa, look at Neon. This is so better than Cyberpunk 2077. Wow, Neon. It was pathetic.
Big, epic, and vast. It looks very Night City-esque. And then in the final game, it is minuscule. In fact, we actually did a video, probably at this point a couple of years ago, where I downloaded a bunch of mods for Starfield to see if I could fix the game or make it significantly better with the help of modders. And
yeah, this is supposed to be Cyberpunk 2077. You know, this is supposed to make it feel bad.
What I found was that it didn't really help that much, but there were mods that were entirely designed around making Starfield closer to the concept art and like removing a lot of the technological restrictions. So like Neon originally had 100, 200 foot ceilings. They ended up getting rid of that for Neon, and it ended up like really claustrophobic because they brought all the ceilings down. It just was kind of frustrating. And that's what I'm thinking of. When I look at like the descriptions of Sentinel and the descriptions of what the map would need to be like, the whole time I'm like, bro, if this is one of those things where it's like, the Grand Bazaar, and it's 4 shops divided by...
God, I hope it is. I really hope it is, okay? I'm not expecting anything good from Elder Scrolls 6. I'm expecting massive disappointments. So, you know, at this point, the worse it is, the better I honestly will feel. Again, Fallout 5, dead. Whatever Obsidian's making with Fallout, dead on arrival. And Elder Scrolls 6, Todd Howard's last hurrah before he officially retires, is also fucking dead. So, at this point, I mean, I want it to be as bad as possible. I want it to be unforgettably possible. The worst thing, honestly, any of these games can do is be mid. That is really the tragedy. When we get something that's not fun enough, but could have been actually good. There's no world where this is gonna be good, so I hope that this is gonna be as trash as it gets. Hire Anita! Hire Zoe Quinn. Let's get a party rolling. Let's get it started in here. Okay? Let's get Kanye West to do some. No, actually, wait, let's not get Kanye West to do. Or we should actually. We should based. Oh yeah, it's gonna be an experience. I want this to be as bad as possible. I want to hear already how some game developer who's making Elder Scrolls 6 can't handle the stress and his brain crashing out. Okay, I want it to be bad at this point.
3 load screens, I'm gonna crash out. I'm just being real. Like it's really hard to feel like you're embarking on an epic, vast adventure when it is so far behind the curve technologically. It's just.
By the way, the stalls is a great example, by the way, because I feel we don't talk about how bad Bethesda is at understanding what makes games fun. For example, when it comes to Starfield, they actually took to heart the complaints that people had about Skyrim, the fact that the grand trading district is like 3 houses and 3 traders. Which it was. So, with Starfield, what did they do? They added a bunch of traders that none of them sold anything useful or good. That they were useless. They were there and they were effectively just decoration. But they were traders. Okay? Instead of 3 traders, now you had like 20. And all of them were useless. Okay? So, Bethesda doesn't understand these things. They don't know how to make something good.
Frustrating, but there is potentially like light at the other end of the tunnel. We do know that Todd and all of those guys are very aware that this is probably the biggest question mark for a lot of fans, and that a lot of their audience is worried about the technological limitations. And so they know what they have to do. Like, they understand the mandate. I think the setting sounds interesting. I think they have a lot of potential. Seeing that there's a lot of like waterways, that there's potentially canals, there's a big harbor, there's a lot of shipments that go in and out. They have the opportunity to do things like ships and like shipping, where you could actually have a ship of your own and sail it up.
Isn't this a speculation that we pretty much have confirmed the idea that they're going to have ships and whatnot? Because they have to have vehicles in Elder Scrolls 6. We know that because Starfield has vehicles, which means, Elder Scrolls 6 has to have vehicles. Remember, Todd Howard and Phil Spencer were literally talking that Starfield Shattered Space was not a big hit because they revealed the buggy too early. Yes, I wish I was making that up, but that's legit how bad things are. Yeah.
Up and down the coast, delivering goods or just to get to different objectives. That would be really freaking cool, especially if they brought the like ship customization tech from Starfield, which I still insist is phenomenal, and they brought that over to like custom.
It's bad. I don't know what's the deal with these people. So many people are actually unironically saying the ship customization stuff. It's shit. It is barely usable. Like, what is the deal with these people actually, like, saying this stuff? I don't even know.
Customize the inside of your ship. That could be super cool. That could be super cool. With the big city, they have the potential for, like, a living, breathing, dynamic city. Think of what, like, Warhorse did with Gutenberg, for example, where they had 1,400 NPCs in that city alone simulated with daily routine.
Tips.
And activities, walking to and from work, heading to bed. Like, it could feel so alive and so amazing and cool. But that's the tricky thing. Is like Gutenberg in KCD2 is significantly smaller than what Sentinel is supposed to be. And I cannot imagine BGS of 2026 making even Gutenberg with that level of dynamism and free flow exploration and interactivity. And I just hope I'm wrong. You know, I hope I'm wrong. I read through this stuff and I get excited by it, as I'm sure many of you do. You clicked on this video after all. But people ask me all the time, they're like, Luke, why do you talk about BGS so much if you very rarely
Because it gives money.
Have nice things to say? And I always say, like, it's because...
but seriously, because it gives money. Like, this is a re-upload because the first video bugged out on YouTube and it didn't make the view. This is why Luke re-uploads videos constantly because there is this thing on YouTube that sometimes you just don't get the initial views, and if you re-upload it, maybe it gets higher, and YouTube pretty much determines how many views a video is going to get in the first minute of it launching. So deleting videos and re-uploading them in hopes that your initial view count is better is actually a legit strategy.
I'm a fan, dumbass. Like, I want them to make amazing games, and I want them to be at, like, the cutting edge technologically. I want them to show everybody how it's done, because they used to do that. Like, that high we used to...
Unironically, I would also want this, Elder Scrolls 6 to be good. I would like, Fallout games to be better. But, that's a small difference in opinion, I guess. Doesn't matter which one you like. We probably all want things to be the best they are. But in this case, I have accepted the reality. Most people watching this also have accepted the reality that Elder Scrolls 6 is just not going to be good. That Fallout is just not going to be good. We're going to get disasters, so I hope we're going to get a Nida Sarkeesian level of disasters, because that would at least be funny. Again, the most heartbreaking thing that can happen with any of these Bethesda titles is the game being mid. It really is just the game being mid.
To feel, and that I felt when I played like Skyrim for the first time, and it's just this sense of awe and wonder and free flow exploration. Same with like Fallout 3, Oblivion. Like, these are amazing games. And then Fallout 4, solid but a very different kind of game. And then like we just hit Fallout 76, and we hit frickin' Starfield and everything else they've done with the mobile games. It lost the magic for me. I feel like it became more about building a product than an experience. And you can start to feel that in games like Starfield and Fallout 76, where it becomes more about paid mods, it becomes more about creations, it becomes more about the in-game store spending.
Oh, the in-game store is going to be great. By the way, there's no multiplayer in Elder Scrolls 6 or Fallout, because that would interfere with the multiplayer aspect of the game.
Atoms on
Not that I'm an idiot, ignore that last time, because it would interfere with the creations sales.
And I just hope that Elder Scrolls 6 is not that. I really hope that this is like a return to form, and it's Todd going, I still got it.
The irony of him using the words return to form is not lost on any of us, I would say. We all know what return to form means. One of the horsemen of the apocalypse. Dragon Age, the Veil God. In any case, that was Luke Steffens. 10 out of 10. Have a nice day. Bye.
All right, friends, it's T-Man, and I'm back. Guess where? The Mandarin again, broski. So I got a question for all of you, men. Where did you get your beliefs? Where did they come from? Who gave them to you? Or are they your own? Now, if they're not your
So we got to the point where men are choosing solitude over relationships. And what it comes down to is I don't even think there are men who are opposed to family or the idea of family. I think they're very much in favor of it. But they would rather be alone than deal with disrespect. They would rather have peace than have boundaries walked all over. Now, I'm going to bring up a couple sort of examples here, more so for contrast. But I was at the gym the other day, and I don't normally go to sort of big box commercial gyms, but every now and then there might be a machine I want to use, whether it's for injury prevention. And to be fair, when you go earlier in the day, I was there in the early afternoon, you see a lot less of the kind of nonsense that people talk about with the antics there. And right, I'll say most people were there to exercise, and that's what they were doing. But there was a woman who was in the middle of the gym right in this sort of turf field area. And she had a tripod behind her recording. And really the only way I could put it is, yeah, it is the summer. Yeah, it's hot outside, but there's air conditioning in the gym. There's no reason to go to the gym dressed the way she was unless you're looking for attention, which I assume is what she was doing, being in the middle of the gym, stretching with a tripod behind her. And I would assume to upload the video or record it for some form of social media. Now, any self-respecting man looking at that is not going to want to approach her, not going to want to have anything to do with a woman like that, because there's no form of exclusivity, and it is really doing things for all the wrong reasons, for seeking attention. Now, this one was probably in her early to mid-20s. And I want to contrast that with something else that happened at the grocery store, which was a positive interaction, by the way. But there was a woman who had asked me if I could help her grab something that was high on a shelf, and it was a few things of kefir, I believe. It might be pronounced a little bit differently. I don't buy that, but I heard it's supposed to be good. And there were no romantic implications with this interaction, but I helped her, and she said thank you and have a good night, and it was a pleasant interaction. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because me helping this woman reach for something that she couldn't, or that she wasn't tall enough to, I could say that men are taller than women, which on average they are, right? And someone could tell me that, oh, well, I know a woman who's 6 foot. Just like, which that, of course, that's an exception to the rule, but that doesn't make that sort of generalization true. Whereas I could call out this behavior at the gym that I saw, and someone could say, oh, well, I have a friend of mine who's in a perfectly healthy relationship and is married. I say, okay, that's great, of course, but that doesn't change what a majority of people are seeing and dealing with, especially with on social media. It doesn't change that, the behavior nowadays. This woman at the grocery store was older, which I suppose also is in some way a contrast between generations and such, what is a priority to them with the recording and the really how much of a forefront social media has played in our lives now, because of course it was around to some extent, and even in the early 2000s, for the most part it was only adults on there, maybe with close friends and family. People weren't putting on some kind of image and using it for all the wrong reasons. But I had seen something that it wasn't, I didn't see it directly on social media, but it revolved around social media. And it was a woman. You guys may have heard of this. I think it definitely was talked about. But there's a woman who was working for DoorDash. And I've done DoorDash orders in the past, so I guess I kind of want to give my take on this anyway. But a 23-year-old woman who was doing a delivery. And she had gone to the house, and I guess this guy was passed out on the couch, not wearing anything, and she started recording him and uploaded on TikTok. The video had gone viral and got something around 30 million views. Now, she got fired from DoorDash. She is dealing with some form of a trial right now. I don't recall the exact charges. But the times that I've done DoorDash, when you make a delivery, you send a screenshot, you leave at the door, and that's it. There's no reason to peek in the door and any of that. Now, from what they're saying is that there was doorbell camera footage showing that the door was very slightly opened and that she actually opened it all the way, like was visible in the video that was posted on social media, and just started recording this guy. The times that I've had problems with DoorDash orders in the past, there was one time where someone was very rude over Messenger because I had refunded something that was out of stock, and they're saying, oh, you should have found an alternative, and proceeded to just, insults and all that. And rather than being like, okay, I'm going to blast them on social media, I just contacted support. They canceled the order. That was that. End of story. You don't record something like that and upload it on social media, really for attention or this obsession with everything revolving around you. That's the problem. The social media stuff is a big problem. Now, additionally, I had come across something on social media that was a kid who met a hero of his, who was the voice actor of Courage the Cowardly Dog, and it was very pleasant to see. But you don't see enough of that. You don't see enough positivity, even when it comes to the gym, that woman recording in the gym. You don't see enough of uplifting other people, showing them how to do the exercise with proper form. A lot of these, right, so-called female fitness influencers, all call it like it is. They're just looking for ego and attention. Obviously there are some out there that are really around fitness, but recording at those angles, wearing what you're wearing in the gym, which, I wouldn't want, if I had a sister or a daughter, if that applied, I wouldn't want them leaving the house dressed like that. That's the problem. That's what so many men are talking about and why they're just opted out, done. It's what it comes down to, because first of all, they're going to value exclusivity. They're not going to want a woman who engages in those kind of things. And I've heard this mentioned of how, oh, well, when they're in a relationship, or if it applies, a woman saying, when I'm in a relationship, that stuff will cease to continue. But even having the urge for that is a problem. Now, anyone who has quit a habit, I think, knows what I'm talking about. Where if you are around people who engage in that kind of habit, you are more likely to fall into it or fall back into it even after you've quit. So, for a woman, like, let's just say, for example here in the gym, to say, okay, I'm in a relationship now, I'm not going to dress that way to the gym, I'm not going to record such videos, or even just saying I'm not going to go to bars, I'm not going to go to the clubs when I'm in a relationship. You shouldn't have had those urges to begin with, because those are not at all things that are going to lead to a feasible relationship. A self-respecting man is not going to want to be with a woman who does those kind of things. So really, that's what it comes down to. This idea of a man being a provider is a lot more than just financial, right? A lot more than just financial. But the problem, really the dilemma, that I think a lot of men are seeing right now, and that's regardless of, like I mentioned, if, exception to the rule, because if, whether you think there's good women out there or not, I think that by a certain age, a lot of them are taken. And of course, there are women who are widows, they are, right, and no man's perfect either. Like, I've known people who have had fathers in their lives that were actually, not doing things they should be doing, right? Yeah, the mother shouldn't be held accountable for that. It's not her fault. I understand that. But a lot of men right now are facing a dilemma where it is either overlook red flags, tolerate disrespect just to be in a relationship, or be single and hold out for a good woman to come into your life, or rather to perhaps to not be around such influences. So I know there's a lot of men who will go overseas and such, but I really think and even, look, I'm not taking any accountability away from the individuals here, but even when I mentioned the girl recording the guy with the DoorDash, the woman in the gym, in many ways, it's a critique of the times we're in. It's a critique of all of the influences which are just detrimental. That kind of behavior never should be at the forefront. It should not be celebrated, certainly. And that's another thing I'll say, too. If you ever come across those kind of posts with the gym stuff, and you look at the comments, it is either, sad to say, some men putting like heart emojis, which they shouldn't be doing. They shouldn't be engaging with that stuff to begin with, and giving them the attention and validation that they even want by posting that in the first place. But I'll also see, which is obviously encouraging it, but I'll also see women who are encouraging it, acting like this is a good thing, celebrating it. Now, a good friend should be honest in saying that what you are doing is wrong. If you are doing something that is negative that you should not be doing, a good friend is going to call it out. They're not going to encourage that kind of behavior. We've heard about, I'm sure, yes men and stuff like that. You don't want those people in your life, right, in your circle. But I see that behavior not only accepted, but in some cases actually encouraged. And that's a very bad thing. It's a very bad thing. And there are men who will actually get with women like that, and they will be told that they're insecure because they have a problem with it, that they're controlling because they have a problem with it, get with the times. Just because the majority is doing something doesn't make it right. Doesn't mean that you should just go along with it. When it comes to standards, now I've had this conversation with actually a good friend of mine recently. When it comes to social media, in saying that if a woman doesn't have social media, that it is a green flag. And essentially what we had come to a conclusion of was good luck finding a woman under the age of 35 that doesn't have some form of social media. Now, what I said in response, which I agree with, is if the account's on private, friends and family, not having the life revolve around social media, I would say you could say that's a green flag. But the problem is they're still seeing all of the influence of it. Now, I've even tested this. I've made new accounts and just happen to scroll and not share anything, not like anything, not comment on anything, and just seeing where it leads me eventually. And you don't have to look very far to come across that stuff. It's very much in the limelight, right? Whereas things like I mentioned with that kid meeting his childhood, his hero, you don't see enough of that. And that's the problem. You don't see enough of that. Right? It's been a very big shift, and I think it's really even bigger than dating. Why so many men feel like they don't have any sense of community, any sense of belonging, why a lot of them are walking away from friends, walking away from relationships. That's really what it comes down to, because self-respecting men are going to look at that and want nothing to do with it. Now, when it comes to the gym, I want to mention this as well. When it comes to recording in the gym, I've heard that there are some gyms that have policies where they don't allow recording. I personally haven't seen it, so, and again, I don't always go to gyms, but I would say there needs to be some way to limit that. I'm not sure exactly what the kind of the proper stuff is behind recording in public, right? And if I happen to be at the gym and I'm inside, I don't, it's not a big deal. But I could see why people would feel uncomfortable with it, right? Especially when I've seen videos on social media of a guy happens to look in a woman's general direction and they're a creep for whatever reason. If they're not even looking at him. And look, I mean, if a woman's dressed like that in the first place, and I don't think that she should be surprised when she gets that kind of attention. I don't. I don't think she should be dressed like that in the first place. I don't think men should pay any mind to it in the first place. But to even act surprised to me doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. A guy's not a creep if he's minding his own business and is on the stair stepper and happens to look at your general direction for half a second. He might even be looking at you in the first place. He very well might not be. Even when I saw this woman on the turf at the gym, no one was really looking at her direction. They were all just minding their own business. Because they're there to work out. They don't have time. And I think a lot of people now, a lot of men now, see it for what it is. And it's exactly why they are walking away from things like that. So, as always, guys, I appreciate you for viewing the video. Hope you guys have a good one. Just kind of my thoughts here with why we've got to the point where so many men are choosing solitude over relationships. So, appreciate it, guys. Thank you. the other morning I was going to 7-Eleven. I was picking up a hot dog. And for those of you who don't know, on DoorDash you can actually place an order for pickup, so you don't have to have it delivered to your house. You can go there in person and not pay the delivery fees. So I had arrived at the 7-Eleven and I had grabbed a handful of condiments for the hot dog, some mustard and some ketchup. And then I'd gone up to the cash register. A young woman was working there, probably in her early to mid-20s. And she says, "Who is this for?" You know, essentially, who are the condiments for? I just said, "Oh, I ordered a hot dog. And I just wanted to take the condiments with me." And she's like, "No, you put it back. You put it back. I have them in the bag." And seeing when she already put them in the bag, she probably thought that I was the delivery driver, right? Thinking that I was going to take the condiments for myself. And I showed her the name and explained to her that I'm here to pick up my order. And I just wanted some extra ketchup and mustard. Keep in mind, I mean, it's for free. They have a whole pile of stuff right there. What is each one of those things worth? Like 1 cent? But she very rudely, again, she was saying this with a very rude tone, pointing at me, saying to put them back, essentially insinuating that I'm trying to take advantage of her or steal, whatever it is. Thinking I was some DoorDash delivery driver, so I was below her, whatever she was going through her head. And she finally calmed down, understanding that that was my order to pick up. And explained that she had already put some in the bag. I told her, "No, I want more condiments. It's complimentary." She finally calmed down. And if this was me a number of years ago, I probably would have somewhat lost my temper, to be completely honest, because I just was someone which people should not tolerate disrespect, whether it's from men or women, which is a problem I see too. A lot of men will not tolerate disrespect from other men, but they'll tolerate it from women in their relationships. Nonetheless, though, I had told her after, calmly, which I thought was really the best thing I could do, to not be so rude. And she kind of just rolled her eyes and was like, "Whatever." And then I got to thinking to myself in the car on the way home, never have I seen a point in my life where people, but especially women under the age of 30, are so entitled and have this kind of God complex, do not know how to treat one another, do not know how to treat people. They've been so spoiled, their dopamine receptors have been so fried by the constant validation that every single person now, every single one of them, for the most part, a lot of them, seem to have some form of a God complex. I mean, it's bad enough where anyone right now can go on social media, make an account, buy a few thousand followers, buy a blue check mark, post a bunch of pictures, buy a bunch of likes, and act like you're some celebrity. Act like you're on top of the world. And here's my thing. Even if it was legit, if someone really had that kind of influence, if someone really had that kind of social media presence, sounds ridiculous, whatever you want to call it, you should still remain humble, because understand something. Social media status means nothing. Everything on social media is fake. I don't care what anyone says, it's fake. And anyone who's going to be around you for some sort of social media, this and that, they're the wrong people. They're fake as well. Because the second that kind of stuff goes away, and this goes for money, whatever it might be, the second that kind of stuff goes away, they're going to be gone. They're not going to be in your life. But to my point, never have I seen women acting this way, being so quick to dismiss men if they don't check every single box. And that's even for men that would be considered Chad, whatever you want to call it. I've heard women say things in the line of, if you're close with your mother, that's a red flag or that's weird. Which, if a girl says anything like that, it's over. I mean, that right there is telling you that she has no appreciation or understanding for the fundamental or the concept of family to begin with. No sense of loyalty. And also tells you she probably had a bad relationship or disdain towards her parents, which I've seen that as well. Pretty much every girl like that has turned out to have a bunch of red flags, from what I've heard from friends and all different kinds of stuff. But my point being is that this sense of entitlement, the lack of respect, and so quick to dismiss not only men, but good, decent men most of the time, good, decent men who are stoic, who are masculine, who would love to take these girls out on dates, build something serious, but they rather be with a toxic guy, or they rather have a bunch of guys for different purposes. I'm seeing a lot of women now wanting open relationships and proud of that idea. I mean, that's backwards. That there's such a need for validation from different people. That's how fried a lot of women's dopamine receptors have become. They're not okay with just one partner, boyfriend, whatever you want to call it. They need the constant attention and validation from other people. And ultimately, that's all dating apps are. That's all social media is. Validation. And that's why they're so dismissive of a lot of the people that are good, genuine people, because they see them as a social media like. They see them as a dating app DM. They see them as something disposable, something to use for a few seconds of a dopamine rush, and then move on to the next thing. Like, there's been such a big desensitizing of intimacy, of relationships, of what that really is. Like, I had a buddy of mine who was dating a girl, had everything going for him. Everything going for him. He was going to go places in life. And this girl, he found out she was disrespecting him behind his back, gossiping about him to her female friends, talking about him very rude over text, and acting like she should be on some yacht with some guy, which, by the way, he was in his early to mid-20s at the time. Thinking that she's entitled to be one of these girls she probably saw in a music video or on some, again, fake reality social media post, which is not real life. People seem to not understand that. They're so caught up with this comparison. And you ask them, where are you seeing these people that are making you feel so insecure? I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they're going to say it was on social media. And people don't seem to understand that's not real life. That's entertainment. That's not real life. And you'd think she would have been happy with this guy. He was loyal. He was caring. Found out she had a whole bunch of dudes that she was talking to on the side. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I mean, it's cooked. And the worst part is, as a man, you want to get away from this kind of stuff. You want to unplug from this kind of stuff. But social media is all around us now. Like, even myself, around the time I graduated college with job applications, almost everything revolves around social media. I'm even seeing job applications where they're wanting you to link your Facebook account. Just things like LinkedIn, Indeed, all this kind of stuff where you put your kind of credentials, just like social media apps, where a lot of the time people are lying or exaggerating about their credentials on there. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Like, even not that long ago, I got an email from a subscriber who was talking about something similar, but in the email he had mentioned, after I'd replied, he had mentioned that he wasn't expecting a reply. And look, I know what it's like to be rejected. I know what it's like to be dismissed, feel like you're not good enough, whatever it might be. But what that tells me is there's a lot of people that think they're not good enough because they see someone else with, whether it's a social media following, this or that. For someone to even speculate that, I wouldn't take the time out of my day to respond to their email, which, again, I don't always have time to check my email. I don't always have time for that. But when I do have time, I'll make time for it. I'll get back to the emails when I can, and I really try my hardest to. But that tells me this is someone that's been rejected in the past, probably emailing someone, following someone, not getting a follow back. And it's terrible how dismissive we are towards one another. Like, go to your local department store or grocery store. See how people are. See how people treat one another. See how people are so quick to act like you don't exist. And I understand people have bad days, but this is not normal. I see it time and time and time again. And I'm someone who used to work retail. I know exactly how it is. But it's far beyond that. The lack of care, the lack of respect towards people. Like I had a jiu-jitsu coach at a former gym I used to go to, which again, this is no knock on jiu-jitsu or the coach. I think it's important for every man to train or do some form of physical activity. But soon after joining the gym, I had followed the head coach on Instagram, and he knew I followed him. We talk over DM all the time. And he never ended up following me back, which, quite frank, to me, I took it as disrespect. I took it as very offensive, to be honest with you. Maybe I shouldn't have, but to me, it's almost saying, I'm more important than you, and you want to follow me. You want to see what I'm doing, because you've got people posting freaking 10, 20 things on their story a day. Whether it's them cooking, whether it's them going for a walk, whether it's them going to the store and some shirt they tried on. They want the whole world to revolve around them. But what that's telling me is, I'm more important than you. I don't care about you. You're a peon to me. You're a peasant to me. You want to see what I'm doing. That's what that tells me. I mean, it's completely backwards. It's completely backwards. Go on a dating app nowadays. See how it is. If you want to waste your time, go on a dating app. Do it for experimental purposes. See how women behave on there. How they'll match with you, get the validation, get the text, wait for you to double text if you do that. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. They'll even be the ones to engage with you in the interaction. But if you respond to them, you're a creep, whatever it is. I've seen crazy stuff like that. I've seen girls literally give guys their phone number. And the guy will talk to him, normally over text. And they'll just flip like a switch. They'll just flip like a switch, and then they'll start wanting to slander the guy behind his back. Trying to say how he's creepy. It's like, meanwhile, you're the one who gave him your phone number. Do you not understand that? How is he the creep when you gave him your phone number? When you entertain the conversation to begin with. But this is how entitled and quite frankly delusional so many women have gotten. This is, again, why the dating market is where it's at. Why a lot of men are choosing to stay single and not being in relationships. Combine that with all the horror stories they see. You shouldn't want any part of it. I have a friend of mine who used to work, a buddy of mine used to work at a pharmacy. He told me nonstop throughout the day, girls in their 20s buying psych meds. Nonstop. He said most of the clientele there were women in their 20s buying psych meds. That tells you that they're not happy doing this. They're doing that, quite frankly, because they are miserable. That's what people seem to understand. The people that do the most of that kind of stuff on social media, the story posts, all that kind of stuff, they are the most miserable deep down. You cannot have peace of mind if your happiness is dependent on others' validation. If it's dependent on other people giving you a like or a view or whatever you want to call it. Social media's ruined it for pretty much everyone. I'll be straightforward. That is the number one culprit. And we could argue about other stuff. We could talk about a perfect storm of everything, perhaps. But social media, to me, is the number one reason why people have this kind of God complex. Number one reason why people don't have mutual respect for one another anymore. Like I said, having someone follow them. There's my validation. There's me being important. There's me being more important to them. Not following them back. Acting like you don't exist. Weirdest thing I've seen. This main character syndrome, it's the main culprit in all this. And I would even argue, dating apps and social media, they go hand in hand. They're the same thing. They're the same thing, just a dopamine release. Just a form of women to get more and more deluded. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But don't forget that a lot of these men who feel rejected, a lot of these men who seemingly feel like they're on the outside, they're going to be the ones getting the last laugh. Because this is going to dry out eventually. Whether it's women getting older, whether it's women having to face the reality of life and things outside of that. Once that runs out, they're going to realize that they didn't have any peace of mind to begin with. It was just ways to mask their misery. That's what the validation was. That's what the dopamine release on the social media was. It was all meaningless at the end of the day. Anyway, guys, appreciate you viewing the video. Hope you guys have a good one. Men have enough stressors in their daily lives. They don't need someone in their life to make it harder. Like even in the city I'm in, we're talking $3,000 for a little studio, 1-bedroom apartment. There are things out of your control, obviously, that just come up. And for some reason, this is controversial to say, but yes, men have internal battles as well. Men have demons that they are facing in private. Men have things that they're dealing with. And if a woman's going to come into a man's life, it should not make the man's life harder. They should not come home and have to be bombarded with insults and orders and all different kinds of stuff. They should not have to play hurdles and games to be in a relationship to begin with. And then even when they do land the number or get in the relationship, it's more hurdles and games. And it turns into absolute chaos. You know, a while back I was talking to a friend of mine. It's interesting because I didn't think much of it at the time, but I understand a lot more what he meant by it now. He was a little bit younger than me. He was 27 at the time, and he had told me he has a daughter, and me and him were talking kind of about having kids, and I told him, you know, down the line I think it would be ideal to get married and have kids. And he told me something to the extent of basically, dude, in the West, don't do it. Just don't do it. And as I've gotten to an age where I've seen more men either getting married and having kids or contemplating that, I've seen a very common trend of absolute horror stories in dating and relationships. And it's just something to the point where, looking at this from the outside, of course you don't want to be closed-minded. Of course you should be open-minded and acknowledge that, sure, there's a exception to every rule. But most of the time, it's absolute nonsense. It is absolute nonsense. Most people in relationships are miserable. Most people in relationships are doing it involuntarily. And what's so interesting is that, you know, a lot of men that call this kind of stuff out, a lot of men that choose, by the way, choose to stay single, are labeled things like incel, essentially that's involuntary. But what's so ironic is that a lot of men I know in these toxic relationships, or a lot of people I've seen in them, that's really involuntary because they're afraid to put the foot down and end things. They can't handle being single. I mean, I've seen so many men absolutely ruined by relationships, ruined by breakups. They're not the same. Too many men, quite frankly, I've seen destroyed by women. You know, and it's scary too, because even a lot of women who you'd think you could take seriously and lead to marriage, like this whole tradcon thing. I mean, a lot of these tradcon women that I see, that to me is just a grift as far as I'm concerned. It's just a complete grift. And even on social media, I've seen plenty of girls who will have Bible verses in their bio, which great, I'm all for that. But then they'll be posting pictures of in bikinis and this kind of stuff, and even in some cases, links to certain things that I don't even need to go into detail of. And you'd have to ask yourself, this is just pandering to men. That's what this is. That's just trying to pander to a certain base of men just for money, just for clout. It's a grift. It's fake. You know, and again, a lot of men I see falling for this kind of stuff. The worst part is that you have a lot of gaslighting towards men who basically say, look, if we're going to be in a relationship, you have to respect boundaries. You have to respect the fact that you can't go to nightclubs, you can't go to bars, you can't do certain things just out of principle. If you're in a relationship, you should not be going to bars and nightclubs. And I've seen cases, actually I had a family member of mine who, they were married at the time. They were married, and his wife was going to nightclubs behind his back, and you know, he wasn't even really thinking much of it at the time, and to no surprise, they're divorced now. But understand something. When I was younger, when I was in my very early 20s, I used to go to nightclubs, and quite frankly, it was just out of insecurity and the people around me, you know, which it's not something I would do now. Even back then, I thought it was foolish. But I understand that the main reason people go to nightclubs is to sleep around. At least in the city I'm in. That's the main reason people go to these nightclubs or bars, whatever you want to call it, nightlife, whatever you want to call it. You know, and it's not about, oh, girls having fun. Look, if a girl's going out with a group of girls or by herself, especially, not with her boyfriend or husband, whatever, to a nightclub or bar, it's finished. That is the end of the relationship. And there's no amount of gaslighting that should convince men otherwise. You're not insecure because you feel that way. You're not being controlling. You're not being manipulative. That's ultimately the manipulation, because the reality is, with respect and principle, there should have never been a desire or even interest or any crossing your mind to go somewhere like that to begin with. That's how I feel about it, guys. And it's just, even with getting a girl's number nowadays, you know, it's to the point where you think once you land the number, you've already done 95% of the battle. But again, a lot of the time, there's even more hoops and hurdles and games. Like, I had a friend of mine, we were out at the local Buffalo Wild Wings, and I think they had closed, they closed at 1 a.m. I'm not sure if they close that time every night, but he had a friend of mine, one of the three people there, had gotten one of the waitress' numbers, you know, good-looking girl, she was in her probably mid-20s, and she actually engaged in the conversation with him the next day, texting him something kind of flirty or whatever. He responded to her. She didn't respond. I guess she was at work. And then about 8 hours later, he double texts her, texts her again, whatever you want to call it. Now, we go into the Buffalo Wild Wings without the friend. So just me and another friend, not the third guy who got the number. Then the following day. And this waitress comes up to us trying to say how our friend's a creep and this kind of stuff because he, like, double texts her or something like that. And my friend literally called her and he's like, wait a second. You gave him your number. And she's trying to say, oh, well, I didn't like him. I'm like, wait a second, but you gave him your phone number? So what that tells me is that, number one, which it could be a few possibilities, but women have so many options now that they can just nonchalant, just brush a guy off like they're nothing. Or number two, they just wanted the attention and validation of having a guy text her or chase or whatever you want to call it. Got their validation, and then they were on to the next one. But either way, it's insane. Either way, it's ridiculous. I mean, no matter how you put it, that's not acceptable. And my point being, guys, is with these kind of hurdles and games, understand something. Men do not have time for that. Men who have responsibilities, jobs, family matters, hobbies, skills, they don't have time for these hurdles and games. And that's just my point with I've talked about previously, the lack of understanding for male leadership. When a woman comes into a man's life, they shouldn't want to make their life harder. They shouldn't want to make them have to play games at all like that. But I've seen it time and time again where they have to jump these hurdles and games. And again, like I mentioned, even when they get the number, even when they get the dates, even when they get in the relationships, it's more and more and more games. You know, it's to the point where I even think, right, a lot of girls who I haven't been in a relationship in some time, I dated here and there, you know, over the past few years. But a lot of the girls who I dated in the past, they were very big on trying to sell you something, to try to pander to you, to try to appeal to you. Like, I remember one girl, she's like, oh, I'm really into Jeeps. Jeeps are my favorite car. You know, I drove a Jeep at the time. Another girl who, you know, when I was a kid, I used to collect Bionicles. She made some comment about liking Bionicle. She didn't know how to say it right, Bionicle. But my point being is that saying things that aren't even true to try to pander to you. And I've heard people say that's the thing all girls do. Whatever. But besides the point, trying to reel you in, trying to sell you on something. And then when you get in the relationship, then they just start to run amok. I mean, I've seen it so many times. Even men who have women living with them. A woman takes over part of the house, starts putting her stuff there, and it could even be the man's house. It could even be a house the man paid for, the man is paying rent on, and he just happens to let her stay with him. Even I was over at someone's house who is living with a girl, and I was like, hey, is it cool if we leave and hang out somewhere else? He's like, oh, let me ask her permission. She was like doing her own thing in the room or something like that. I'm like, thinking of something like, dude, which I should have had this conversation with him after. I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, why do you need to ask her permission to hang out? And again, that's really the problem. is a lot of men allow themselves to get walked all over by women. They allow themselves to get disrespected. They allow themselves really to not be the leaders, to not be a leader at all. And what's so crazy to me is, think about it this way. Most men, if they had a friend who was toxic, if they had a friend who was actively a detriment to their life, if they had a friend who was a hater, making backhanded comments, trying to prevent you from achieving your goals, your mission, your purpose, things you need to focus on, a distraction, they'd probably be pretty quick to get rid of them, or not, or at the very least distance themselves from that person, not associate with them as much. But I don't see men doing the same thing when it comes to relationships. Because the reality is, a lot of men cannot handle being single. And I've touched on this in previous videos, where being alone and being lonely are not the same thing. And being lonely is easy to fix. Take up hobbies, develop new skills, find like-minded people. That's how you fix being lonely. Men should be able to be fine, just fine, with being single. I've known so many men who have absolutely destroyed their lives because of lust, because of not being able to handle being single. Even someone I know who, he had gotten with a girl who he met on a dating app. Obviously not the first place you'd look. I mean, I've known people who have had success on dating apps, and they'll even tell you straight up if they were here in the room. They had to go through 5 to 10 very toxic relationships and interactions. That's not to mention how many dates and flaking and ghosting and all this kind of stuff. And the hurdles and games they had to play to finally get a good one. My point being is that he met this girl on a dating app, and she actually was living with him. He got her pregnant. She kicked him out of the house. And I touched on that story in a previous video, but I didn't add the second part. So he moved back with his parents, and then he got with another girl on a dating app who was older, who was a single mother, and now got her pregnant, and the same cycle happened again. She kicked him out. She was looking for someone to get her pregnant so she could get more money. And I guarantee you she's going to come after him for child support. But and this guy was young. He's not a bad-looking dude. And that's the craziest part. These dudes you see falling for this kind of stuff, doing stuff, it's like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like, seriously, bro, wake up. It's like you almost want to grab him, like, scream at him. For anyone who knows what I'm talking about, when you have a friend like that, or even someone who you don't know that well, but you're an acquaintance with, like, you almost just want to grab him and, like, scream at him. Just seeing him do this kind of stuff, man. It's like, you're destroying your life for lust. You're destroying your life because you just can't handle being single. It's crazy. I don't know where this whole thing of men's self-worth being dictated by, like, how many women they've been with comes from. Part of being a man is having self-control, being able to control lust. Being able to focus on things and not be derailed so easily. It's just... it's rough. I mean, it's really rough, guys. And it's really rough to see men and good men fall for this kind of stuff. And like, even a while back, one of the dates I went on, and I've talked about using dating apps in the past, which even back then, dating apps were different. They were still trash, but they were different back then. But she had drove super far to hang out with me. Like, it was more than an hour away, and this was at 11 night, so I already kind of knew what it was going to be about. I was like, okay, this is just about hook up and whatever. But she had come over, and classic here with dating apps, but she was very different than in the pictures. But I still had a respect. Talked to her, things were cool, whatever. Didn't end up doing anything with her. And she had left, and I noticed that I was banned on the app, which probably is a blessing in disguise because they're a waste of time anyway. But I was banned on the dating app. And I honestly don't know what the heck happened, but what I speculate is that this girl, out of spite, was upset that I wouldn't hook up with her, whatever you want to call it. She drove so far, whatever. That she just was like, okay, I'm going to get back at this guy out of spite. And I've seen crazy, making that case look like nothing. crazy manipulative things out of spite, to the point where I'll say, like, honestly, I don't really trust people in general. I don't trust women. Look, you shouldn't just trust people. You should not do that, because especially in the cases I've heard with false allegations made, men being taken to the cleaners, fake no contact order, fake restraining order, off false allegations. I've even heard of situations where a girl would get a restraining order, which I think is like a 2-week temporary time, depending on the state or whatever. And during that 2 weeks, they will text the guy. The guy texts them back, and now the guy's in trouble for reaching out to them. But it's the craziest part is that, and again, I hope it's not like this in other states. I've heard some people say that some are worse than others, but the girl who got the restraining order, the protection order, reaches out to the man, right? So you think, wait a second, that should automatically be expunged. That's defamation of character. If you're going to say someone is a threat to you or whatever you want to call it, and you are getting a no contact order, yet you're reaching out to them, that doesn't make any sense. You should be held for liability. That's straight up fraud. That's straight up lying. But a man can actually get in trouble for responding to a text message if she engages with you. And the girl, from what I've seen, from what I've heard from other men who have dealt with this, gets no punishment whatsoever. I mean, you got to just be careful. Like, the only thing I can really say, if you are going to choose a date, whatever you want to call it, you have to have really good discernment, and to the point where, look, I've heard some people say that girls with no red flags, all of a sudden there's a flip of the switch. They move in with you, whatever you want to call it. There's a number of years you're with them, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's like a full 180 flip. And that should scare people. That should. But again, tell me what is worse. Because that's not paranoid. That's just living in reality. That's just seeing other people's experiences and not wanting the same thing to happen to you. Because understand something. There are some times where you should learn from other people's experiences, because if the same thing happens to you, you might not be able to recover. You might not be able to recover, or it might take a number of years to recover. For anyone who's dealt with a toxic relationship, as I have myself, you understand what I'm talking about. It takes time to recover from that. But my point being is that you got to be careful nowadays. You really got to be careful nowadays. You have to watch your own back. You have to be aware of the kind of tactics and things that are out there. That's what it is, guys. So the other day I was at the gym, and this is a gym I used to attend almost every day, so I know a lot of the regulars and familiar faces there. But I get there around 5 or 6 in the morning, and as I'm there, I'm on the leg press, and a woman who I had seen there before comes up to me and wants to work in with me on the leg press. I told her that it's totally fine. Now, as I'm doing my set, she starts getting teary-eyed, wanting to tell me this sob story about how the night before she was at a nightclub, which, by the way, meaning a Tuesday night, she was at a nightclub and felt guilty because she had gotten with a guy that one of her friends liked. So she's now having this magical epiphany out of nowhere in the middle of her set on the leg press. And I entertain the conversation somewhat. Again, I don't go to the gym to talk to people who I barely even know for 45 minutes. I'm there to exercise. But as she talks more and more, she makes this comment that I personally took issue with. She said something along the lines of, he was the only good-looking guy there, how all these other guys were average, and they were calling them manlets, calling them short, and saying that she knows what she brings to the table, acting like she's all high and mighty. By the way, this girl's 40 years old almost, average-looking at best, saying stuff like that. So after she said that, that was really the end of the conversation for me. I stopped entertaining it, and she now goes up to someone else, another guy, probably to tell them the same sob story, to use them as a shoulder to cry on. Doing that whole thing all over again. She's not at the gym to work out. And the problem with this is we've all heard this thing of this idea of average men's dating struggles that we hear about, when it really a lot of the time is just men stopped caring, men walking away a lot of the time is where it is. But with women like this, you have to ask yourself, what does a woman like that have in any sense? What does she bring to the table, and what right does she have to even make statements like that of average men and looks and this kind of stuff, when this is an average looking woman who is around 40 years old? These are the kind of women that they expect men to prove themselves to. It does not make any sense. And I'd seen an interview of a woman who was talking about why more people than ever are not in relationships, and she was mentioning the height stuff and in defense of it, saying how women want a guy who's a protector, saying that that's why they want a guy who's 6 foot and above, which that whole idea of protector is just completely false. I'm someone who currently trained jiu-jitsu. I used to wrestle a little bit, and I've trained with D1 college wrestlers, D1 football players. I've trained with judo black belts, jiu-jitsu black belt world champions, and they've ranged in all different kinds of heights: 5'6", 5'7", 6 foot, 6'5", 5'5", all good in their own right. When you even look at a lot of MMA champions, guys that are dominating divisions, a lot of them well below the average height. So that whole idea of man being above 6 foot protector is completely false. Also ask yourself this: if a woman is 5'1", 5'2", 5'3", she's going to be looking up either way. She cannot tell a difference between a guy who's 5'9", 5'10", 6 foot. I remember I was at a restaurant with a friend of mine, and this one waitress shows us a picture of her and her boyfriend who was going to be visiting. He used to also work at the restaurant, and saying that he's 6'5". Meanwhile, this girl's like 4'10". The guy was probably 5'6". A lot of them have no idea what that even looks like. Again, it's just that image. That's what they're concerned about a lot of the time. That image of being with this guy who's 6 foot because that's what their friends want. That's what all their friends want. That's what social media and dating apps tells them they should strive to have. It's just about the image. And notice something too, when it comes to things that women bring up in relationships in terms of what they want and don't want, a lot of the time it's physical things that men have no control over, like height, or it is status stuff where if anyone's with you for those things, it's purely transactional. That's not real. That's not a real relationship, and whereas when men talk about what they want in a relationship, they mention things like behavior, loyalty, trust. Is this a woman who I could introduce to my parents? Is this a woman who I could raise a family with? Those are the kind of things that men bring up. Like even myself, anytime I've interacted with someone in general, I don't care if they're a fast food worker, I don't care if they are a delivery driver, I don't care about all that status stuff. I care about who they are as a person. I don't care if they have 1 follower or 100,000 followers. I don't care. Women have fallen in love with the world, and they're never going to be happy. They're never going to settle because they always think that there is some next best thing. That is regardless of how they look. You got propped up women who are mids. You got women who are, I guess in a general sense, below average in terms of looks, who think that they're entitled to this man that, quite frankly, does not exist. The whole social media thing is something where I think obviously it's done damage to both men and women, but in different ways. I myself barely get on social media. I have notifications off. The only reason I even have it on my phone is to talk to a buddy of mine who's in another country where I have to pay fees to text or call him. But I have notifications off when I gather. I'm not scrolling through reels. I'm not scrolling through stories. And you can even look at the data on this. A lot more women are on social media, much more traffic from women than men. And it's done way more damage to women in terms of relationships, especially because with the hypergamy stuff, women now see this. They see the world. They see all these things that they want to compare and strive to have. They're never going to be happy. They're going to want the next best thing. This whole grass is greener mentality. I remember I saw a video a while back, and I think this video kind of circled around the internet. But it was of a woman who was claiming to be Instagram famous. By the way, a woman whose whole body really was full of plastic. Lips done, nose done, body sculpting clothing, wearing a ridiculous amount of makeup. Talking down to this family on this plane, saying that she's Instagram famous and million followers, which very well might have been bought or paid for just like the rest of her body. Talking down to these people on the plane. And ask yourself, are these the sorts of women that we're supposed to want to date or take seriously? Really, there's a beauty in humility, in being humble, in a natural look. A 7 or 8 with a whole ton of makeup is, to me, below average. It's average at best. That needs to be put out there too. You have a lot of men who feel like they're not good enough for whatever reason. And then you have women that are wearing ridiculous amounts of makeup, that are having work done to their body. These aren't the kind of women that men should think they're beneath. And another thing too is men need to start lifting up one another, because I've seen this too, where men will say these kind of statements of, oh, well, you're not 6 foot, you're not good enough, and you don't have a shot with her. Those aren't the kind of people that you should want in your circle. But why are you propping up women like this? Why are you propping up women like that? Seriously. That whole thing is just something I'll never understand. But I want to talk about something too, because I was thinking about this earlier. I happened to see this clip from the movie Toy Story that a lot of you guys probably watched at some point in your life, right? And the movie's is a little more than 30 years old, which is wild to think that it's been 30 years, right? We had Kmart, Sears, Blockbuster. But there's a scene in that movie, actually a pretty powerful scene, where Buzz is thinking that he's a space ranger, right? And he's trying to jump and leap and fly, and thinking that he's going to be like he saw on this television, when he's been told that he is, which he is, a toy. And he falls and finds out that he is indeed a toy. He's not a space ranger. He's not something that he, indeed isn't. He was humbled. Whereas with women nowadays, which I'm not saying this because both are full of plastic, sadly, a lot of them. My point being with that is, you have women who could be rejected 100 out of 100 times by this child guy that they're looking for. And they would still think they're this upper echelon, top shelf woman that is better than every single man around them. The level of just not living in reality is it's unthinkable. It's unthinkable. And I'm going to say something too to the men out there. Anyone who feels like you're not good enough, do not let women like this, do not let people like this make you feel like you're subpar. Make you feel like there's anything wrong with you, whether you're average or whatever. And if you're someone who's not happy with the way you look, go to the gym. Fine. But I see people going through way too many extremes to try to impress women like this. I was having a conversation with someone who is below average height. I think he's around 5'7". And he was seriously considering getting this height lengthening, limb lengthening surgery. And I told him, like, dude, number one, the height suits him.
Oh,
the other thing is, why would you want to do something like that just to appease a woman like this who, let's look at the reality, severe lack of loyalty and commitment. I'm not going to play that court jester game. I think it's good to have well-fitting clothing, wear a good fragrance, go to the gym, but not go overboard with it. Not be like these women who are getting lips done and nose done and all this kind of stuff. I was even at CVS the other day, and I had seen a woman who was probably in her early 20s who was working there. And it looked like she literally had a stack of books behind her, did not fit the rest of her body. And I've seen it more now than ever of women getting work done to themselves. And they're just ruining themselves. They're absolutely ruining themselves at a young age. At a young age. I mean, I'm talking women who are as young as 19, 20 years old, getting Botox and lip fillers and stuff like that. It was never like that when I was growing up. It was never like that when I was that age. That was not a thing. But again, it's this social media hypergamy stuff. It's wanting to be something that you're not. And these are women who naturally looked fine the way they were, and they're just destroying their bodies. They're just absolutely destroying their bodies. It's, you know, and I see people that want to defend this kind of stuff, that want to defend this whole idea of average man. Just do your thing. That's really where I'm at right now. Focus on yourself, focus on your mission and your purpose. And of course, there are things you can do to impress yourself. Yes, impress, or rather improve yourself and impress others. Although you shouldn't live for the approval of other people. But there are things that you can physically do. But don't go overboard with it, and don't live for the approval of women. Have some self-respect. Like, I got a couple friends of mine who are below average height, and they have no problem getting attention from women. But they also know how out of control the dating market is nowadays, and they're not wanting to commit to these women. Because they've shown that, like I mentioned with the behavior stuff, they're not women that you can introduce to your parents, to your family, that you'd want to bring home and have at the dinner table across from your father or mother. Like even the body count stuff too. Women that'll openly talk about that. That is just not something that should come out of a woman's mouth, if you ask me personally. High body count is a big, major red flag. Because it goes to show that you had to be with so many different guys and you still were never able to settle. That goes to show you probably had a bunch of red flags. You have no respect for yourself. And women that are now in their 30s wanting to settle down. Women, like I mentioned earlier in the video, 40 years old, thinking they want to live this lifestyle. How long are you going to live it for? Until you're 50, 60, 70? It doesn't make any sense. I even saw a clip someone sent me of, you guys ever seen those videos where they have the table and the red button on them and someone pushes it if they're completely done with the interaction? And it was a woman who was 32, and she said that she was too young to have kids. And the guy asked her age, said she was 32, and hit that button. I'm thinking to myself, this woman is 32 and waiting to settle down, waiting to have kids. What are you waiting for? And again, I know that there are circumstances of widows and stuff like that, but generally speaking, if a woman is above the age of 30 especially and has not settled down, to me, that is also a major red flag. That shows that she probably does have high body count. And another thing too, with when it comes to baggage and mileage and stuff like that, women shouldn't have a bunch of baggage. They should not. Men are generally the ones that are going to have the harder lives. Women should not have gone through all these breakups, relationships, and this kind of stuff. That's not at all something that a woman should go through. Again, think back to what this whole thing with average men not being able to get dates. You think men in general, average or not, are going to want to date women like that? You think that's conducive for a long-lasting, healthy relationship? Because I'll tell you right now, it's not. It's just not. And more we see it. It's out there with the internet. And people are wise to it now. They're wise to it now. So when I see men who are not putting focus on dating anymore, I totally understand why. Because there is no trust. Because there is no commitment. And, you know, men obviously have responsibilities. They have things they need to focus on. They don't have time for these tests and trials from your own girlfriend. That doesn't make any sense. But as always, guys, I appreciate you for viewing the video. And just a point I wanted to make here, because with this conversation, it just got me thinking about how a woman who is average looking, which I'm not saying it would be any better if she was some model or something like that, with that kind of mindset, that entitled mindset, it wouldn't be any better. But it's it's just so bizarre to me seeing a woman in that position where you'd think she should have wanted to settle down, to have kids, still acting like that, still talking like that. It's a prime example of why men are opting to stay single. So, as always, guys, I appreciate you viewing the video. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you. It is profound the things that women can get away with, and without any accountability. In some cases, I've even seen women who will defend things like false allegations. And I remember a while back I had come across a video of a gentleman who was working as a train conductor in a mall. And if anyone's kind of familiar with, if you guys have been to a mall in some time, where they have little go-karts that kids can ride in and stuff like that, it was the same thing. And there was a video that I had seen of a woman who was recording him, it was from her end, hurling all these labels at him, false accusations, things that I'm not going to repeat on here, things you would not say to someone who you didn't like. And you could only see it from her end. So of course she starts recording. How convenient, right? Of course she starts recording after she gets the guy aggravated. And she's sitting there hurling these false allegations towards him. And it got me thinking about something that I heard from a friend of mine, where he almost had his life ruined by a woman who he had not even met. He had never contacted this woman. He has never met this woman. And she tried to ruin his life with false allegations. So I want to tell you guys a story. And to start things off, he had told me that he was driving one night down a very kind of well-known street in the neighborhood that we were in. And it's really somewhere that you can't